Um, Welcome to our Friday IL Skills Program. My name is Catherine. I use she, her pronouns, and visual description. I am a white female. I've got shoulder length black hair, and I am wearing a fuchsia colored top with floral prints on it. I'd like to welcome back George from Department of Banking and Securities for our second installment of our DOBS series. Today we're talking about retirement and planning for retirement. Interestingly enough, I just looked at my statement this morning to check where I was. So.
And you're on track, right?
I'm on track. So
good. Yeah.
But we are recording today's session, so we'll post that recording, the links to our YouTube page so you can share it. Captions are available. And chat is also available for posting questions. So quick biography. George is a consumer outreach specialist with the Investor Education and Consumer Outreach Office of the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. George has over 25 years of speaking and training experience. He is very passionate about saving and investing for the future and teaching people how to protect their assets. For the last 15 years, George has worked for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Prior to working for the PA Department of Banking and Securities, he worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry, leading a team at the Bureau of Workforce Partnership Operations and Employment Services. He's worked with both employers and consumers one-on-one, as well as speaking at several local and regional events. George's educational background includes a master's degree in business administration from Rosemont College in Rosemont, PA. He also holds a bachelor's degree in education from Kutztown University of Pennsylvania in Kutztown, PA. So I will turn it over to you, George.
Fantastic. Thank you, Catherine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Now that we got the kinks worked out. Now that Catherine got the kinks worked out for me. There we go. And full screen. And you can see the full screen. Correct?
I am seeing full screen, yes.
Fantastic. Welcome, everyone, to my presentation on START, which stands for Start Today and Retire Tomorrow. As Catherine said, my name is George Dillman. I'm a consumer outreach specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. And the START presentation is about retirement planning. It's not as much of a how-to save and invest for retirement as it is a should do and why to. Even though the how-to part of this is important, in this day and age, with modern technology, everything that we have at hand, the entities out there willing to help us, the how-to part might be the easiest part. The hardest part might be just doing it, getting started and doing it. And that's what we're talking about today is the should do and the why to, and getting started with saving and investing for our long-term retirement goals. A little bit about me, a little bit more about me. I'm not an expert when it comes to saving and investing for retirement. However, as I just mentioned, we don't need to be experts. A little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and with the things out there that we have to help us, we don't need to be experts. I've also been passionate about saving and investing for my long-term retirement goals ever since about the age of 13. When I was about 13 years old, I went to a local amusement park with a group of friends of mine. And while I was at the park, I noticed a gentleman working in the park that just did not look happy being there doing what he was doing. First of all, he was up in age, like 75 or 80 years of age. Not that that matters, but struggling with the job that he was doing. It looked like a dirty job. He had like a disgusted look. You could tell that was the last place he wanted to be, was at that park working that job. And I looked at this guy and I thought, I don't think he's working this job because he wants to. I think he's working this job because he has to. And I thought right then and there, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I have to work because I need the money. Now, do I want to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I want to work? They say there's some health benefits that come along with that, keeping the body active, the mind active, getting out and socializing, putting a few extra shekels in your pocket doesn't hurt either. Yeah, but there's the difference, right? Doing it, big difference, doing it because you want to, not because you have to. And that's what I want to strive for, and what we all should be able to strive for if we choose to do that in retirement. All right, so a little bit about our agency. The Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities regulates financial services and works to ensure consumers and businesses are well informed about the marketplace, which is kind of what I'm doing here today. So with that, let's start. Now, first, I do need to apologize. This is the one presentation I do where I have a script, and I have to stick to that script, or it'll take a lot longer to get through than if I don't use the script, at least for this one presentation. So please bear with me. All right, so today we're going to talk about retirement planning. National statistics show that most of us aren't saving enough for retirement. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. And we have to remember for those late starters that it's never too late to start. And of course, it's never too early. In fact, the earlier, the better. We're going to talk more about that as we go along. So let's take a look at the numbers. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security, 45% of Americans, and some experts say as much as 50%, so 45 to 50% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement. No retirement account assets, nothing, nada, zilcho. The median retirement account for all working age households is only $2,500, and median savings for those nearing retirement is only $14,500. So this is our goal, or maybe our goals for today. For those of us that don't have a plan in place to save, invest for our retirement, the goal today is to get you at least start thinking about it and getting started with it. And when we're looking at the plan, we're looking at a three-part plan. I watch videos, I read books all the time. Financial experts, they're always, when they're talking about saving and investing for long term, they're talking about these three things. First of all, paying down debt. Paying down debt. I have a quote we'll talk about a little later on about earning compound interest or paying compound interest. I think most of us would rather make compound interest than pay it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of us out there paying more in compound. You know, there's plastic cards that get us in trouble. So what we're looking at is paying down that debt if we have it, paying it down, in some cases paying it off. We're looking at saving for a nice, healthy, short-term / emergency fund to take care of those emergencies that will come along and come up. Not if they come up, when they come up. Experts say that we should have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a short-term or emergency fund to pay for this, rather than having to dip into retirement accounts to pay for those things. We have that money readily available. And then finally, to save and invest for our retirement goals. So for those that don't have a plan in place to do that, the goal is to get you to at least start thinking about it and getting it put into action. For those that have a plan in place, the goal is to get you to review that plan. Do I have debt paid down enough? Do I have maybe I have a short-term fund, but maybe do I have enough in that short-term fund? Am I investing the right way, and am I investing the right amount in the right way at where I'm at in my career at this point? So for those that have a plan in place, the goal is to get you to review that plan and make changes as needed. For those of you that have a plan in place and know that it's a good, solid plan, George, I've got my debt paid down. I have in fact, I have more than 6 months worth of expenses in my emergency fund. And I know that I'm investing the right way, investing the right amount in the right way for where I'm at in my career. Then the goal today is to remind you why you're doing it and to remind you to stick to those goals. Don't get dissuaded either one way or the other. Stick to that plan and still review that plan every so often, just in case, to make sure that you don't get derailed and get sidestepped, so to speak. And then finally, to protect it, because as we save and invest it, there are those people out there that will be looking to take it away from us. Fraudsters, scammers looking to relieve us of all that money that we saved and invested. We don't want to let them do that. So those are the goals that we're looking to achieve, one or more of those goals. All right, so I have two videos that go with the presentation. And the first video is on basic saving and investing. And then once we complete that video, we're going to go over 3 key points that they cover in the video. So let's get started with the first video.
The number of Americans who worry about their standard of living during retirement has hit an all-time high, and for good reason. 45% of us have yet to put even a dime away for retirement. But building your own nest egg isn't impossible. Just ask 34-year-old Matt Lowther.
Retirement wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. I knew I wanted a retirement plan. I just had no idea what it would look like.
Like many of us, Matt had little personal finance experience. He had options for retirement plans, investment opportunities, and savings plans, but didn't know where to start.
Personal finance wasn't something that we talked about. To me, it felt like going to a horse track and you're picking the horses. I had to make a decision when I was 26 that was going to affect me when I was 60, 65 and beyond.
Matt didn't have a lot of time for something that was years down the road, but he knew it was important. So he began to look for trustworthy resources to help him make a decision.
I basically started reading. A lot of this stuff is very eye-opening, and it was very basic level information that I was able to build upon just by reading.
Janet Bodner is the editor of Kiplinger's Personal Finance magazine. As she sees it, a gradual approach is key.
You just need the basics and then build on those basics. Think of it as building blocks that you're building on really throughout your life. You don't have to know everything when you're 21 years old.
I didn't have any special skills or any special knowledge. I sought out the knowledge.
There's multiple ways to invest, and it's a personal decision. So when you read maybe a couple books, a couple websites, it gives you a nice broad array of information on different investing topics, and then you narrow it down to determine what's best for you.
One mistake that young people make is thinking that they don't have enough money. You do not have to have a lot of money to invest. You can start with $20 a paycheck. With time on your side, the small amounts that you contribute when you're young grow into huge amounts by the time you're ready to retire.
That's because you have time on your side. Each year's growth can generate its own growth the next year. A powerful wealth-building process called compounding. Think of it as a snowball. A small snowball like this starts to build over time as it collects other snow. The longer you roll the snowball, the more snow it collects.
You can put a little away now, and it'll end up being more than if you put a whole lot away later.
Let's say Matt invests $2,000 every year. For simplicity, we will use a round number like a 10% gain from interest. From age 25 to 35, Matt invests for 10 years, but then he stops investing. He doesn't spend it, he leaves it there until he retires at 65. Meanwhile, Edward starts at age 35 and invests the same amount as Matt of $2,000, again at that same round number of 10% a year until he is 65. Edward has contributed a total of $60,000 over 30 years, while Matt only contributes a total of $20,000 over 10 years. Edward has invested $40,000 more than Matt, but Matt will have more money when it comes time for retirement because Matt had a longer time period for compounding on his interest, dividends, and money. Matt would have over $612,000, and Edward would only have $362,000. A difference of $250,000. The interest for Edward would be about $302,000. Matt's 10-year investment will pay him more than $592,000 in interest. If Matt continued to invest throughout his working career, he would have a grand total of $974,000 at retirement. That is $612,000 more than Edward, showing the importance of investing early and continuing to invest. Unlike the 45% of Americans who have saved nothing toward retirement, zero.
You don't need to have a finance major in school. You just need to make sure you take the time to read a couple books, go on a couple websites, but look at a couple different sources to learn some of the basics for investing.
The earlier you start, the easier it is the older you get. The worst thing you can do is nothing.
Find out more by visiting wi65.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
wi65.org, great site to check out. It's a kind of it was done in conjunction with PBS and several agencies, such as our agency, the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Great site to check out. A lot of videos on saving and investing, and for different ages, for different groups, if you will, millennials, baby boomers, Gen Xers, so on and so forth. This video is called Investing in Your 30s, although I don't think you need to be in your 30s to apply, again, the three key points that they bring up in the video. First of all, as Janet Bodner said, we don't need a lot to start saving and investing for our long-term retirement goals, especially if we're younger. $20 a paycheck, $30 a paycheck. And if we're already doing that, could we invest an extra $20 a month or $30 a month? Did I get a raise? Did I get a promotion? Am I looking at a new career that will make something, or can I through creating a spending plan or a budget, can I create additional funds to put a little extra away? But we don't need much. We don't need to be experts on investing to invest successfully. A little bit of reading, a little bit of research. And as I said, in this day and age with modern technology, the sources out there, at our fingertips that can help us with this, it just makes it almost too easy, so to speak, as the saying goes. And finally, the sooner we start, the better. The sooner that compound interest snowball kicks in and really starts to take off. And we're going to take another view at that on a later slide. All right, so the START program was developed to help us make wise decisions to reach our retirement goals. We're going to do this by looking at three career phases: early career, mid-career, and late career. But first, how do you picture your retirement to be? I have some slides on what some people picture their retirement to look like. Some or maybe more might match to what you're looking at when you retire. Let's take a look at the slides. How about a nice cool drink by the pool? Spending time with the grandkids. Nice long walks out in the country, little hunting, little fishing, puttering in the garden, taking trips, working in the workshop. Few employers offer traditional pensions. Many, 51 to 52%, don't offer any retirement plan at all. We need a plan. Having a plan is crucial to meeting our retirement goals. It's important to know how much we need to retire the way we want to retire, not the way we have to retire. And remember, a dollar today won't be worth a dollar. Won't be worth a dollar tomorrow, aka inflation. We have to factor that into the mix, so to speak. So this is what retirement could look like for those people who have a plan in place, right? To pay down debt or to keep debt paid down, to build a nice, healthy short-term / emergency fund, and to invest for their long-term retirement goals. What could retirement look like for those that don't have a plan in place? We're going to take a look at the same slides with a little bit of a different angle to them. How about having to serve that guy by the pool his drink after drink after drink, and make sure you get that drink right? Or having to work in a daycare center after you retire? Or become a professional dog walker? How about having to hunt and fish for your own food or grow your own food in the garden because we can't afford to go to the grocery store all the time? Or become a golf caddy working for tips? Or drive buses, loud, angry tourists on coach trips? Or become a deckhand on a boat? How about having to look at pictures of Paris, Rome, and London because we can't afford to go to these places? And finally, how about having to work in some modern day sweatshop probably for some supervisor half your age, barking orders at you? You're not working hard enough. You're not working fast enough. Same slides, two different angles, if you will. Those with a plan, those without a plan. And by the way, I'm not poking fun at any of those professions. For example, I knew a couple people who retired and went to work in daycare centers and loved it. loved it, got to be with the kids all day long, and they just loved what they were doing. What was the difference? They were doing it because they wanted to, not because they had to. Big difference. Big difference, as some people out there already know. Oops. My apologies. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm sorry. All right, so we're talking about these points because look at the statistics. As a whole, we're not saving enough. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. Gen Xers are falling very short. We need to start saving, and the earlier the better. Let's talk about compound interest. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And I think we know what he means by when he's talking about this. Would we rather make compound interest or pay compound interest? I think we'd rather make it, but unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, there's probably more of us out there paying compound interest. Loans, those plastic cards that get a lot of us into trouble. If we're doing that, we need to turn that around. Again, pay down debt and start earning compound interest rather than paying it. This is a slide on the power of compound interest. Two different scenarios. The first scenario is over the next 40 years, I'm going to save $84 a month over the next 40 years, but I'm not going to put it anywhere where it's going to earn me compound interest. I'm going to put it underneath my mattress or buried in jars out my backyard. After 40 years with no compound interest, I'm going to have a little over $40,000. Not too bad, not too bad. Different scenario. Over the next 40 years, I'm going to take that $84 a month and I'm going to put it someplace where it's going to earn me compound interest, just to make it, just like in the video, to make it easy. I'm going to round it to 10%. With compound interest over the next 40 years, I'm going to have close to $500,000. Little bit of a difference. This is a different take on what we saw in the video on the time value of money. We have Susan, who at the age of 25 starts investing $5,000 a year for 10 years. At the age of 35, she stops investing. She doesn't take any of it out. She stops investing and she lets compound interest take over, so to speak. And she's going to be the middle dotted line. Whoops. The middle dotted line. I forgot I can change screens by touching, change slides by touching the screen. She's the middle dotted line in the graph. Bill waits 10 years. He waits until he's 35, and then he starts investing $5,000 a year over the next 30 years for a total of $150,000 versus Susan's $50,000. And Bill's going to be the bottom line on the graph there. But at the end of the 30 years, who has more money? Susan has him beat out by about $60,000, obviously not because she invested more, but because she started earlier and compound interest kicked in early. Even though she stopped investing, because of that compound interest, it really took off, and she kept pace, actually kept ahead of Bill when it came time to retire. And if you look at all three lines on the graph, you notice how maybe the first 10 or 15 years, it doesn't do a lot, but after the first 10 or 15 years, for those of us that have time on our side, after the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off, Now, I don't show this graph and I don't show that video to say, to paint doom and gloom for somebody who hasn't started, saving and investing when they were 25. It's merely to show that for the sooner we start, the sooner that compound interest kicks in, and again really starts to take off. Because even though Bill waited 10 years, he's certainly going to be better off than somebody who waited until they were 40 or 45 to start investing. And that person's certainly going to be better off than somebody who waited until they were 45 and 50 or 50 and so on and so forth. So again, the whole idea is if we're not doing it, to do it. And if we're already doing it, could it hurt to do a little bit more? All right, so retirement statistics aren't good. Again, as a whole, we're not saving enough. But cutting costs and saving isn't rocket science. Is there something that we can do to free up those additional funds? Or there's things that we can cut back on to give us those additional funds? Can we create a spending plan, aka a budget? where we can decide what we're going to spend, where we're going to spend it, so we can free up those additional funds to pay down debt, build up a nice, healthy emergency fund, and save for our long-term retirement goals. Do I need to get that fancy coffee at the fancy coffee shop every day, or could I make at least some of my coffees at home? Do I those of us that like to eat out, meals, lunch, dinner on weekends during the week, could we make more of our own meals at home, or brown bag it for lunch more often? Do we need that brand new sports car or SUV, or can we make do with a lower priced model, maybe a vehicle that's a couple years old? Or can we just service the same vehicle for a couple more years? We look at things that we can cut out. I prefer talking about swapping out rather than cutting back. Can I get the same bang for less buck? And the example I'll use is rent. Those of us that are renting, we've all heard the stories how rents are going sky high anymore. Could I look around for a better option? Could I find comparably the same place, same size, same type of neighborhood in a different apartment complex, and save myself a couple $100 a month? By doing that, I've just freed up. Again, I'm getting the same bang for less buck. I freed up $200 or $300 that I could use elsewhere. Is that the money that I could use to pay down the debt and pay and put into my long-term retirement goals, and so on and so forth? What can we do to either cut back or swap out to free up those funds? Let's not deprive ourselves, but find a way of working that into our daily lives. And let's think about not buying stuff we really don't have the money for. This is a quote from Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the guy who only has about $100 billion in his bank account, give or take a billion or two. If you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need. And again, I think if we think about that, we know where he's coming from with that. This is where I like to introduce the old keeping up with the Joneses. I think we're still familiar with that term, keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's the difference between buying things we need and buying things that we actually want. Maybe we fool ourselves into thinking we need it, but really buying things that we want where can get a lot of us into trouble. The Joneses down the street just bought brand new, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, matching SUVs, and they're parked out in their driveway. We feel we have to do the same thing. They moved into a bigger, grander home. We feel we have to follow suit. They go on these nice, fantastic vacations and go out and eat in nice, beautiful, nice, fancy restaurants. And we do, for all we know, the Joneses may be one paycheck away, and probably are, by the way, from total financial, they're giving the impression that they have all this money when maybe they really don't. But they may be one paycheck away from total financial ruin. And if we're following suit, we're going down the same path as they do. Well, who we should look up to, who we should emulate, is somebody like Warren Buffett, or the number of millionaires out there you wouldn't even know are millionaires. I read these stories all the time. I watch videos all the time. Millionaires, people have millions of dollars who you wouldn't even know because they don't live like millionaires, whatever that is with the finger quotes. They live in normal houses, drive normal cars, whatever that is as well, normal clothes. You wouldn't even know they were millionaires because they don't live that lifestyle. They know, in fact, as the old saying goes, how do you think they got so much money? How many do you think they got so many millions? Because of not spending it on all these these things that are out there. Warren Buffett is a good person to look at. This is a gentleman who still lives in the same house he bought back in the 1950s, long before he had $100 billion in the bank account. Now, bigger than any house I'm ever going to live in. But for a man that has that much money, who could certainly live in something, now that he has the money, much bigger, much grander, but he says, why do I need anything else? I'm happy with the house that I live in. I don't really need anything else. Guy who, I've heard time and again stories about how he, one of his favorite restaurants he loves to go to is McDonald's. And there was a story about him taking Bill Gates out to lunch at McDonald's. And when he got there, he paid for the meal, but he also used coupons. He gets them in the mail like everyone else. Why not use the coupons? Famous. I've just read this over the past year. He never buys a new car. $100 billion in the bank account. Never buys a new car because he realized how much a new car depreciates the first couple of years that you have it. He'll go out and buy a car that's a couple years old. So maybe these are the people that we should be emulating, the people with money who don't live like they have money, because again, a lot of times people that are living like that really don't have it. We want to cut costs. We want to pay down or eliminate debt. We want to start saving and investing. We want to make our money work for us, not against us. Remember that Albert Einstein quote that we talked about. All right, so with that said, let's start our phases, our career phases. Some of you are in the early career stage, some are in mid, and some are in late. The first phase in planning for your retirement should start the moment you enter the workforce on a permanent or full-time basis. While retirement might not be your primary concern today, it should be a consideration. Financial decisions made today will have a major impact in later stages of retirement planning and how you live in retirement. Time is on your side, but do not wait too long to start your plan. Start today, because tomorrow may never come. So how do you want to live when you retire? How you live, save, and invest today should be in line with how you want to retire. Decide how you want to retire and plan accordingly. We're not all going to need the same thing in retirement. Different things, different wants, different needs, or whatever you say. And here's the two examples that I use. You have one couple, right? They live in a nice little cottage. The cottage is paid off. They like spending time at home, puttering in the garden, puttering in the workshop. They love cooking meals at home in the kitchen. They love throwing on a good movie, one of the movie channels, and making their own homemade popcorn. They get the same car serviced year in and year out. They're going to have different financial needs than the couple who wants to continue going on nice vacations, maybe live in a bigger and better house in retirement, continue to go out for nice meals, have a new car every year or every other year. Two different couples, two different needs. We decide how we want to live in retirement, and we plan accordingly so we can live that way. Start by asking yourself these questions. Where do I want to be financially? Does the job I have provide enough income? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I understand basic investment principles? Do I know where to find a licensed financial professional? Am I taking full advantage of my retirement options? Are my current habits getting me to my goal? A to-do list can be helpful. And I mailed out copies of these to-do lists that we have that come with the program, actually. The first to Catherine, she'll make them available to anybody who wants a copy. The first couple pages of this to-do list are checkoff sheets for each phase of our career, early, mid, and late career, and checkoff boxes so we can check things off as we go along to make sure that we're following our plan. The last couple pages of the handout are videos that we can watch, websites that we can go to on saving and investing for retirement. So certainly take advantage of that. Use those if you'd like. Something else we can do is create a SMART plan. What is a SMART plan? That is a plan that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has a time component to it. And it doesn't have to be anything long and drawn out. It doesn't have to be the next Gettysburg Address. Something as simple as, I will save $500,000 in my retirement fund within 40 years. So let's take a look at it. Let's make sure it is a SMART plan. Is it specific, right? $500,000, I think it's specific. By the way, experts say that if we set what they term, we set specific and what they term as exciting goals, much more achievable than non-specific goals. Rather than saying, I'm going to save a lot of money for my retirement. Well, it's a lot of money. We just had a slide where a lot of money to one couple is different to another. But if we set a specific number, $500,000, much more achievable. Measurable, I think we can measure that. Attainable and realistic, that's certainly going to be up to us. If I want to save $10 million over the next 5 years, and I'm making $10 an hour at my job, I'm being a little silly, but but if it's going to be up to us whether they're attainable and realistic. And we'll also shelve that because we're going to talk about that again on the next slide. Time component, we do have a time component, 40 years to that. So attainable and realistic, well, according to the compound interest calculator at investor.gov, very easy to find, very easy to use, by the way. It is. I plugged in the numbers for Ned, and I came up with a little over $500,000 in Ned's retirement account. Now, did I manipulate these numbers to get the answer that I wanted? Yes, I did. But you think about it. This is what you would be if you're using one of these calculators. This is the reason for using one of these calculators. If you're using one of these calculators, that's what you would be doing as you go along. And here's the example I use. Again, I'm using that 10% rate of interest, that rate of return. Ned's doing the calculator, and he realizes he's only getting a 7 or 8% return on his investment rather than rather than a 10% return. Oh my God, I'm not going to hit my number. What can I do? Hey, you know what? I just got a raise, or I started doing that budget and I freed up X number of dollars. And if I add more, I'm putting away $86 a month. If I increase that to this number at 7.5% interest, that's going to, so we're changing these up as we go along to make sure that we hit our targets. So we can certainly use one of these. Investor.gov, like I said, very easy to find, very easy to use. There's others out there. Social Security has one. So there's different ones out there. Certainly make use of those. Okay, make saving and investing a habit. Start small if you have to, but start. Estimate what you will need in retirement. Ask for help if you need it. It's good to have professional help. Just make sure, we're talking about financial professional, just make sure that person's licensed and legit, and we can help you with that if you need help with that. Everyone, no matter what your income level, can save and invest money. You just have to get the right information, have a plan, and put that plan into action. And with that, we have our second and final video on Mr. Earl. Mr. Earl, super saver. Mr. Earl never made more than $12 an hour in his career at his job, at least at the time of the video. It is a little dated. But take a look at what his investment portfolio is at the time of the video.
Not long ago, I met Earl Crawley.
Hey, how you doing?
But everyone here calls him Mr. Earl.
Yeah, we can talk about some finances.
He's worked as an attendant at this parking lot in Baltimore for 44 years.
So you really think it's going to improve the gas?
Funny thing though, everyone was asking Mr. Earl about money.
Nickel and dime, nickel and dime.
That's right. Is that booth his pulpit where he's preaching the gospel of investing?
Sure is.
Okay.
He makes my day every time I see him.
Oh, come on now, seriously, investing?
How you like that gold now?
670.
Earl told me he's never made more than $12 an hour, never earned more than $20,000 a year.
How you doing?
So how could he know something about corporate profits?
Gonna get
I had to pry.
So Earl, what's your net worth?
$500,000.
$500,000?
Yeah,
From working here?
working here.
That's amazing.
My last statement.
And there it is in his statements, over $500,000 net worth on a parking lot wage. Now Mr. Earl had my full attention. How did he do it?
Stop working so hard and let the money work for you.
Earl's first lesson came at age 13. His mother had him working the fruit stalls to help pay the family bills. He got to keep just a few quarters for himself.
From the time my mother started taking my money that I earned in Lexington Market, that it wasn't money just to be thrown away. It was there to be used.
Economics aside, Earl had another obstacle to overcome.
Tebow is
He tells me he's dyslexic. Back in the 50s, that meant settling for a life of low-wage manual labor jobs. So Earl figured he'd better sock away what little money he was making. It was just $1 here and $1 there, starting with savings stamps, and that led to savings bonds. At 26, he got married. And by the late 60s, Earl was feeding 3 children on a meager $80 a week.
It was tough, but because we had to sacrifice a lot.
And the budget only got tighter when Earl and Beverly opted to send their kids to Catholic school instead of public school, which was free. Earl took extra jobs to pay the tuition, and you better believe he made every penny count.
Elementary school, I would ask for lunch money, and he would give me $1. Lunch was 85 cents, and he would reply before I walked out the door, "I want my change."
As the years rolled by, Earl kept saving what seemed like meaningless amounts. He started investing $25 each month into a mutual fund and did that consistently for 15 years. By the late 70s, his net worth was $25,000.
Later, as the children got older, he decided to play the stock market. And he bought one share, and, well, the rest is history.
He bought stock in blue chips like IBM and Coca-Cola that paid dividends, and
Instead of taking the dividends and parking it, let it set or let it reinvest itself, and it increased my shares. And the more shares I had, the more dividend I had. Eventually, the more money I have down the road.
so where did this so-called slow learner learn so much about mutual funds and blue chips and dividend reinvestment plans?
You're going to split this year.
It all comes back to that parking lot. And this is my favorite part of Earl's story. You see, his lot is smack dab in the middle of a financial district where he picked the brains of brokers and bankers and lawyers for their financial advice.
What's going on? You got any advice for me today in the markets?
No, I'm just trying to find out something from you.
All right.
Talk to everybody and listen to advice that everybody give me and take it from there.
Earl, why don't we take a look at what you've got in the portfolio now?
Earl had trouble reading, so instead, he listened. He believed in the power of compound interest and stocks for the long haul, which brings us back to the present. Today, Earl's stock portfolio alone is worth more than $500,000. And yes, his house is paid for. And no, he doesn't carry any credit card debt.
He's somebody to emulate not only as an investor, but as an individual, and how to live your life and make the best of what the Lord gave you.
Earl Crawley, you can find the video on YouTube. All you do is do a search, Mr. Earl Super Saver, and you can see the full video. The second part of the video is how he started an investment club at his local church that became very successful. But Earl Crawley never made more than $12 an hour in his career. At the time of the video, him and his wife had raised 3 children who all attended private school. And contingency plan, they didn't reach into their retirement accounts to pay for that, because we know we have to pay for private school. He worked part-time jobs to pay for that, and so they can continue investing. At the time of the video, had his mortgage paid off. Him and his wife had their mortgage paid off. And at the time of the video, they had an investment portfolio worth over $500,000. We can do this no matter what we're making, no matter what we're doing. We can do this, and that's the whole point to this video. Okay, so do your homework before investing. Make sure you're getting non-product promotional information, such as what we offer through our website at dobs.pa.gov. And this is just a sample of the handouts that we have available for people to use. Okay, so we're ending phase one. We're ending phase one with this checklist. Ask if your employer offers a retirement plan, and certainly take advantage of it. Great thing about that is we can have the money taken out of our check pre-tax before we even get the check. We know if we're working on budgeting, which is could be an important part to this. We can work that in, and we don't even have to work that into the budget if we're already having that taken out and put it into our retirement account. If they don't offer a retirement account, research and choose your own retirement account, and or the right investment advisor to work with, financial professional to work with. Consider traditional and Roth IRAs. Changing it up a little bit, consider how other life decisions like having children or owning a home may impact your retirement resources. Make sure you're following money-wise practices. Keep debt paid down, keep a nice healthy emergency fund, and maximize your retirement funds. All right, phase two. Am I on track? You're now in phase two of planning your retirement. Those in phase two or mid-career should have a plan in place. If not, they need to start. Early in our careers and younger, we can take more risks with investments. We have more time to recoup losses and make our money work for us. Further on, however, we want to make sure we're closely aligned with our goals and plans. We want to make sure we are taking fewer risks to ensure we achieve our retirement goals. And with that, we have a snapshot of the stock market from its inception to about where it's at today. A little dated, but it gives us the idea of what we're looking to get across. They compare the stock market to a roller coaster. Stock market goes up and down, but look where it started and look where it's at today. Over the long term, it's gone up. Large companies in this country have paid on average to their investors over the long term a 10% return to their investors, even with all those downturns factored in, like the Great Depression in the 30s, Great Recession in 2008, and all those other downturns. Even with all those downturns factored in, about a 10% return. When we're younger, we can afford to ride out those ups and downs, because for the long term, we can go riskier with our investments, because that's where we're going to get the bigger returns. Now, as we get closer to where we're looking to retire, we probably want to start pulling back for that, going a little bit more conservative, because what we don't want to do is have all our investments in something risky like stocks. And there's even conservative stocks and riskier stocks, so even riskier stocks. And then as we're ready to retire and start pulling money out of those retirement accounts, we hit a downturn, and now we're either taking out at a loss, or we're waiting until that market bounces back before we take money out. And that brings us to asset allocation. Again, when we're younger, we can ride out those ups and downs. That's where we're going to get the bigger bang for our buck, investing in those, those risky, I say riskier, higher rates of return, but I'll say more volatile things, the stock market. And, still investing in some conservative things like bonds, money market funds, not money market accounts, money market funds, which is an investment product. But as we start getting closer to retirement, you see how the second slide, we see how we're going more conservative, with our investing. Bonds, money market funds, we're still investing in some stocks, but over the years, we're going more and more conservative. We're making sure those funds are going to be there for when it's time to start taking those funds out. Oops. Okay. Regularly review your retirement plan. Make sure you are on track with your goals. Remember to account for inflation. Again, $1 today won't be worth $1 tomorrow. So we have to factor that into the mix, so to speak. And meet with your investment advisor regularly if you choose to have one. Some experts say that it might be good to have some type of a financial professional to work with. Again, just make sure that person's licensed and legit. Stay in tune with what your retirement savings and investments are doing. Keep debt under control and emergency savings healthy. However, even well thought out plans can be derailed. Have contingency plans in place. For example, a part-time job for those uncertain economic conditions, such as a wage freeze. Use additional income from raises or elimination of debt to add to your retirement savings. Here's the example I use. You have a couple who pay off their mortgage, right? They're used to sending X number of dollars into the mortgage company. They get to a point where it's paid off. They're used to sending that money in. One goes to the other, hey, honey, how about if we start sending that money into our retirement account and beefing up that retirement account even more? So something that something to consider, in this, especially in this stage. One way to prepare for retirement, changing it up a little bit, one way to prepare for retirement is life planning. Make sure your life and end of life plans are in order and carried out as you wish. Along with that, we don't want to factor family history into our retirement plans. Say I come from a family where male members have a tendency to die of heart attacks in their 40s and 50s. It doesn't mean that, so should I plan accordingly? Oh, gee, I'll never make retirement. Why should I even look at, at saving for retirement? Doesn't mean that every male member of my family dies of a heart attack. And in this day and age with modern medicine, the way they're making leaps and bounds, there's a lot of us out there that could probably expect to live to be 100 years old. What we don't want to be is 100 years old and broke. So again, plan accordingly. Plan as if we're going to live to be 100. All right, phase 3. Are we there yet? This is our last phase, or phase 3. If you're within 10 years of retirement, you're in the final stretch. You should be in your peak earning years. We want to be hyper vigilant about making sure we're making sound financial decisions. Again, getting dissuaded from our goals. We come across that great investment opportunity that's out there, a get-rich-quick scheme. Somebody offers us this great investment opportunity. They're going to guarantee us, no matter what the market is doing, a 15% rate of return on our investment. No matter what the market's doing, and 15% is a high rate of return, by the way. They're going to offer it to us at little to no risk, and like in a quick turnover period. Do you know who offered all that? A gentleman that we all know by the name of Bernie Madoff, and we know what happened there. A lot of people lost a lot of money. In some cases, their entire retirement savings, because they thought this was the way they were going to build up those retirement. So we need to stick to our guns, stay on track with our retirement goals. We need to be aware that retirees have a huge red target on them when it comes to scammers. Learn how to identify the signs of fraud to avoid it, and what to do if you are a victim. With less than 10 years until retirement, you want to assess your savings investments to date. Make sure you are prepared for the retirement that you want, not the retirement that you have to take. Situations could arise that could leave you with insufficient retirement funds, such as medical expenses. Investing additional funds could help these situations. The curveballs life throws at us later in our lives, like forced early retirement, tend to have harsher impacts. Make sure you plan ahead on how to meet those challenges if they should arise. Now, consider working in if money wasn't an issue, consider working in retirement. After retirement, consider working. And we're not looking at doing this because we have to. We're looking at this because we want to. That gentleman at the amusement park, like I said, you could tell he was working that job because he had to, because he needed the money. Now we're looking at doing it in retirement because, again, the benefits that can come along with that. The keeping the body active, the mind active, socializing, and maybe now working that job that we always wanted to work. If money didn't matter to us, something we always wanted to do with our lives, we can do in retirement. We could even volunteer to do it in this situation because we have enough funds. And the example I use here is teaching. What we want to do is, if we plan to do that in retirement, let's prepare while we're working our regular job for that retirement job that we want to do, that we'd love to do. Say I want to teach, but I need to go back and take a few classes. I go back, I take those courses that I need, so when I retire, I can jump into that part-time teaching position that I always wanted to do. Anticipate inflation and tax implications. What you don't want to do is outlive your retirement money. Again, we all want to live to be 100, but we don't want to, as I said before, we don't want to be 100 years old and broke. Plan accordingly. Learn the warning signs and how to protect yourself from fraud, identity theft, etc. Now more than ever, you need to make sure your investments are safe and sound. So, in conclusion, start today and retire tomorrow. Don't put off until tomorrow, because tomorrow may never come. If you've already started, review it, add to it, make changes to it if needed. If you've started and reviewed it and it looks good, stay the course and continue to review it anyway, just to make sure that we're sticking to our guns, sticking on track. And then finally, protect it, because as we earn it, there are those out there looking to separate us from those funds. We don't want to let them do that. Because again, what we don't want to be is 75 or 80 years of age, like that guy at the amusement park, broke, working a job that we have to work because we need the money. What do we want to be? We want to be 75 or 80 years of age, working a job because we choose to, because we want to continue working, or not, if we have to, living life on our terms. So with that, we will conclude the presentation. The presentation. Here's my contact information, or I should say our contact information at the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Our agency, by the way, regulates those industries in the Commonwealth. Banking, investments, finances. If anyone ever has a question, a problem, an issue, a complaint as it relates to that, they can reach out to us. Our toll-free number is 1-800-PA-BANKS or 800-722-2657. And of course, you can reach us through our website at dobs.pa.gov. And with that, we will end the presentation and the webinar. And I'll thank everybody for joining us.